On Christmas night, when Manhattan shimmered under strings of golden lights and every family gathered around warm living rooms, Harper Lane stood alone in her Brooklyn apartment, holding a plate of sugar cookies her little boy had decorated for his father. Snow tapped softly against the window, the kind of gentle snowfall that usually made her feel safe. But tonight, something felt wrong in her chest, like her heart already knew a truth her mind refused to accept. Bradley had promised, sworn, that this Christmas would be different. No late meetings, no emergency client dinners, no disappearing acts. He told her he wanted to be a better husband, a better father. And for one fragile moment, Harper had believed him. She had wrapped her hope in ribbon, placed it quietly under the tree, and pretended the past didn't exist. But then her phone buzzed. At first, she didn't look. She was tucking her son Eli into bed, stroking his hair as he whispered, "Daddy will be home soon, right?" Harper forced a smile, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "Of course, baby. He promised." Only when the apartment finally fell quiet did she pick up her phone. It was a video, not from a stranger, from Christine, Bradley's own sister. No caption, just 30 silent seconds recorded inside the grand lobby of the Plaza Hotel, where crystal chandeliers glittered like frozen fireworks. Harper pressed play. The orchestra in the background swelled with a Christmas waltz as guests in designer gowns floated through the scene. Then the camera found him, Bradley, her husband, laughing in a tuxedo, champagne in hand. Not alone. A woman pressed tightly to his side, her red silk dress catching the chandeliers like living flame. Sienna Caldwell, the mistress he had sworn he'd cut off forever. But the worst part wasn't the way he held Sienna's waist, or how she lifted her face to him like she'd won a prize. It was the kiss, a long, hungry kiss, right under the towering Christmas tree the plaza was famous for. A kiss that said he never planned to come home. A kiss that said the promises he made to Harper were nothing more than props in a role he never intended to play. Her knees went weak. Her breath collapsed. The plate of cookies slipped from her hands and shattered across the floor, icing and sprinkles scattering like tiny, broken hopes. And then, her son's small voice drifted from the hallway. "Mommy? Was Daddy on TV?" Harper froze. Because the video, already viral, had been picked up by a gossip segment playing on the muted TV behind her. Her little boy had seen it. The betrayal wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to her child. And in that moment, something inside Harper finally broke, and something else awakened. A decision. A line she would never allow Bradley to cross again. A promise she would make, not to him, but to herself. And by morning, she and her son would be gone forever. Harper Lane had never been the kind of woman people noticed when she walked into a room. Not because she wasn't beautiful. She was, in that soft, understated way that didn't announce itself, but lingered in the memory. Warm hazel eyes, freckles across her nose, hair she usually twisted into a messy bun before her 6 a.m. shift at Mount Sinai Hospital. She wasn't glamorous. Not like the women who surrounded Bradley at corporate galas. She was real, quiet, steady, the kind of woman who held the world together while everyone else took credit for its stability. Before New York, she grew up in a small Tennessee town where faith, hard work, and humility were stitched into every day of her childhood. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner. Her father fixed cars in a garage that smelled of oil and country radio. Harper learned early that nothing in life came easy, and if you wanted something to last, you had to build it with your own 2 hands. Maybe that's why she fought so hard for her marriage. When she first met Bradley Hale, she was 24, fresh out of her medical imaging program, working nights at a hospital in Memphis. He was visiting for a real estate development project, polished suit, Montblanc pen in his pocket, confidence radiating from him like heat. He told her she was refreshing, different, the quiet in a world full of noise. She believed him. She believed everything he said back then. He brought her to New York with promises of a future she'd never dared to imagine. Luxury buildings, city lights, a new start. But life in Manhattan was nothing like the dream she pictured. Bradley rose through the corporate ranks, climbing higher with each deal, each gala, each important client. Harper, meanwhile, worked long shifts in a cold radiology wing, juggling patient charts, grabbing lukewarm Starbucks on break, and racing home to care for their son. It wasn't the life she dreamed of, but it was the life she made work. She packed Eli's lunches. She handled the bills because Bradley insisted she understood budgeting better. She soothed fevers, wiped tears, read bedtime stories, often alone. Every time Bradley failed her, she stitched the wound and kept going, believing that families survived storms, that loyalty meant staying when things were hard. But loyalty turned into loneliness, and loneliness turned into fear. Fear that Bradley didn't love her anymore. Fear that she had wasted her best years on a man who saw her as nothing more than the mother of his child and the keeper of his home. Fear that she wasn't enough. Yet beneath it all, Harper's strength lived quietly, steady, patient, like coals waiting for the right moment to ignite. She just didn't know that moment was coming, and when it did, the fire inside her would change everything. New York in December had a way of dazzling even the most jaded souls. Manhattan glittered like a jewel box, storefronts glowing with Christmas displays, Fifth Avenue wrapped in gold lights, and the icy air carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from street carts. It was beautiful. It was breathtaking. And yet, for Harper Lane, it was the loneliest place in the world. Bradley's world looked nothing like hers. His kingdom stretched from the polished glass towers on Park Avenue to the marble-floored lobbies where doormen greeted him by name. At Hale and Weston Properties, he occupied a corner office on the 46th floor, a pristine space overlooking the Manhattan skyline. Leather chairs, a sleek MacBook Pro, a decanter of aged whiskey, and a framed photo of Eli on his desk, placed there only for show. To visitors, he looked like a devoted father, but Harper knew the truth. He hadn't attended a single parent-teacher meeting in months. Still, it was the office that fed Bradley's ego. Deals, power, lights, applause. And nowhere was that more evident than the annual Hale and Weston Christmas Gala, a spectacle held beneath the massive chandeliers of the Plaza Hotel. It was the kind of event where women wore gowns that shimmered like liquid silver, where business tycoons toasted to their own success, where long tables glittered with crystal glasses and the orchestra played so perfectly it felt unreal. It was also the place Bradley spent nearly every December night, networking. For Harper, the setting couldn't have been more different. While Bradley drank champagne beneath gold-plated ceilings, she moved through the fluorescent-lit halls of Mount Sinai Hospital, sterile corridors humming with machines, babies crying in the neonatal unit, exhausted doctors in scrubs clutching iPads and black coffee. Harper lived in a world where people fought to breathe, fought to live, fought to hold their children one more day, and after each shift, she returned to the modest apartment in Brooklyn, faded hardwood floors, a second-hand couch, a small Christmas tree decorated with paper ornaments Eli made from construction paper. The dishwasher rattled when it ran. The heater moaned at night. The window by the fire escape whistled when the wind pushed too hard. But it was home. Warm in the way expensive penthouses never could be. Yet the contrast between their worlds grew sharper each year. Bradley arrived home in black luxury sedans, smelling of cologne and champagne. Harper arrived home in the freezing air, her scrubs wrinkled, her hair pulled loose from hours of tending patients. And every night, she hoped he would look at her, really see her. But he only stopped long enough to check his email, pour a drink, and say he was exhausted. The city around them sparkled, but their marriage dimmed a little more each day. This was New York, the city where dreams rose like skyscrapers. But for Harper, it had become the city where her heart slowly broke behind closed doors. Most people saw Bradley Hale as a success story, a polished Manhattan executive with a perfect smile and a spotless reputation. But behind the tailored suits and the charming handshake was a man who lived for applause, for validation, for the feeling of being untouchable. And nothing fed his ego more than the woman he chose to keep hidden from the world, Sienna Caldwell. Sienna wasn't just another young PR specialist climbing her way through the corporate maze. She was ambition wrapped in red silk, with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. She knew exactly what rooms she wanted to be in, and exactly which men could get her there. Her perfume lingered long after she left, sweet and calculated, the kind of scent meant for trophy wives and luxury penthouses. She met Bradley during a marketing pitch on the 46th floor. He was impressed by her confidence. She was intrigued by his power. It didn't take long for their flirtation to morph into something dangerous. Dangerous for Harper, but intoxicating for them. They began meeting in his office after hours, the city lights flickering through the glass wall as whispers turned into secrets, and secrets turned into leverage. Because Sienna never gave without taking something first, she kept screenshots, emails, voice recordings, things Bradley never imagined anyone would collect. To him, she was simply the excitement he felt entitled to, a break from the ordinary life he claimed Harper trapped him in. But for Sienna, he was an investment, a stepping stone. And if that stone cracked, she kept enough evidence to build herself a stairway out. Harper sensed something long before she knew the details. Bradley would come home smelling like unfamiliar perfume or invent excuses so flimsy they collapsed under a single question. His temper sharpened, his patience thinned, and his words turned into weapons. "You're too sensitive." "You're imagining things. You're lucky I provide for you." He became distant with Eli, too, barely acknowledging his own child unless it made him look good in public. Harper carried the weight alone: school lunches, bedtime stories, scraped knees, and midnight fevers. Bradley only appeared for photos or holiday cards. Still, Harper held on, hoping things could be repaired, hoping her son wouldn't grow up in a broken home, hoping love could be enough. But Bradley wasn't looking for love. He was looking for someone to worship him, and Harper refused to play that role anymore. Sienna, on the other hand, played it perfectly. She praised him, laughed at his jokes, told him he deserved more than a tired wife with cheap dreams. She fed the darkest parts of him, and he mistook it for affection. The truth was far uglier. Sienna didn't love Bradley. She loved his access. She loved the spotlight. She loved the thrill of being the woman who could take what someone else had built. And the more she learned about Bradley's financial secrets, the more she realized he needed her far more than she needed him. Harper had been fighting for her family. Sienna was fighting for her future. And Bradley? He was fighting to hide the man he really was, a liar, a coward, and soon, a man about to lose everything. Christmas Eve was supposed to feel magical, the kind of night where families huddled close, where children whispered about Santa, where warmth lived inside every window glowing across Manhattan. But for Harper Lane, it became the night the world she'd spent years protecting finally shattered in front of everyone. Bradley had left the apartment at 5 p.m. wearing a charcoal tuxedo and the cologne he saved for important clients. He kissed Eli lightly on the head, not even looking at Harper as he said he'd be back by dessert. He didn't notice the way Eli's small hands clung to his sleeve, or how Harper's eyes lingered on him as if silently begging him not to break another promise. By 7 p.m., Harper had set the table: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the small apple pie she baked because it was Bradley's favorite. Eli colored Christmas trees on scrap paper while waiting for his dad. Harper checked her phone every few minutes, telling herself he was just running late, telling herself he would keep his word for once, But the truth slammed into her phone without warning. A notification, then another, then dozens. Her coworker texted first, "Isn't this your husband?" Harper tapped the video and watched her life fall apart in 30 seconds. The Plaza Hotel's marble lobby sparkled with gold tinsel, towering wreaths, and a Christmas tree so massive it brushed the chandelier. Under that tree stood Bradley, her husband, laughing with Sienna Caldwell pressed against him. Cameras flashed, champagne sparkled, and then, in front of New York's elite, Bradley dipped Sienna back and kissed her as if he were the leading man in a holiday romance movie. But this wasn't fiction. It was Betrayal, filmed, posted, and shared across social media by guests who thought they were capturing a glamorous moment. And Sienna, smirking, radiant, glowing under the camera lights, whispered something into Bradley's ear that made him grin wider than Harper had seen in years. As the video looped, Harper felt her chest tighten, breath thinning until her vision blurred. The room spun, the fairy lights dimmed, and for a moment she thought she might faint. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, forcing herself to breathe. But the worst moment wasn't the video. It was hearing her son's voice. "Mommy, Daddy's on TV." Harper turned slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. The muted TV above the kitchen counter had switched to a gossip segment replaying the exact clip she'd just watched. Eli stood frozen, his eyes wide, confusion etched into his tiny face. "Why is Daddy kissing that lady?" he asked softly. It was the question Harper had never wanted him to ask, the question that finally broke her. She knelt beside him, pulling him close, shielding him from the screen as tears burned down her cheeks. All the years she'd tried to protect him, to keep his world whole, to pretend his father cared enough to try, it all crumbled in an instant. And that was the moment Harper knew. This wasn't a marriage anymore. It was a wound, and she would not let her son grow up inside it. By the time the snow thickened outside, Harper was no longer crying. She was planning her escape. The apartment felt unbearably still after Harper tucked Eli into bed. He fell asleep clutching his stuffed bear, the one Bradley had bought during one of his rare, sincere moments, though now even that memory felt tainted. Harper watched her son's chest rise and fall, steady and innocent, untouched by the cruelty of the world his father had dragged them into. She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, whispering, "I'm sorry, baby. I should have protected you better." But the moment she closed his bedroom door, the strength she forced into her voice dissolved. Her legs buckled. Her hand clutched the wall as she slid to the floor, the cold, hard wood pressing against her spine. Then the sob hit. Not a quiet tear, not a graceful cry. A raw, broken, guttural sound ripped from the deepest part of her. Years of betrayal, humiliation, gaslighting, loneliness, exhaustion, everything she'd swallowed in silence, burst all at once. She pressed her fist to her mouth to muffle the sound. She didn't want Eli to hear. She didn't want him to ever feel like his mother couldn't hold their world together. But tonight, she couldn't pretend. Tonight, she wasn't the strong, patient woman who fixed scraped knees and paid bills and smiled through disappointment. Tonight, she was a mother who'd been deceived, a wife who'd been thrown away like she was disposable. A human being who couldn't understand how someone she loved could humiliate her so publicly. Her phone buzzed again. She didn't want to look, but she did. More messages, more mentions, more strangers tagging her in comments she didn't ask for. Bradley Hale and his mistress spotted at the plaza. Christmas scandal. Power couple? Looks like someone's wife didn't get the memo. Poor woman. Hope she's okay. Pity. Public pity. It burned worse than the betrayal. She shoved the phone away, her breath shaking uncontrollably. Her mind spiraled. What would people say about her? What would become of Eli? How would she survive in New York alone? Bradley controlled the money. He controlled the narrative. He could ruin her if he wanted to, and he would. Because men like Bradley always fought harder to protect their image than their families. Harper hugged her knees, rocking slightly as old memories surfaced, her mother warning her, "A man who loves himself too much will never love you enough." Harper had ignored it. She believed she could be the exception. She believed she could fix him. But tonight proved he was beyond fixing. Her chest tightened, breaths shallow, bordering panic. She stumbled to the sink, splashing cold water on her face, gripping the counter until the shaking slowed. In the mirror, she saw someone she barely recognized, eyes swollen, cheeks flushed, strength drained. But beneath the wreckage, something faint flickered, a thin thread of resolve. If she stayed, Bradley would destroy her. If she stayed, Eli would grow up thinking love meant pain. If she stayed, there would be nothing left of her. Her voice trembled, but the words were steady. "We're leaving tonight." And for the first time in years, Harper chose herself. Harper wiped her face with trembling hands, forcing herself to stand. She needed to pack. She needed to leave. But when she reached for the hallway closet to grab Eli's small suitcase, something unexpected fell to the floor. A slim black folder with the Hale and Weston logo embossed on the front. Bradley must have shoved it in the closet earlier that day, carelessly tucked between coats. At first, Harper ignored it. She had no energy left for anything except escape. But then she saw her name on a document peeking from the folder's edge. Her heart stuttered. She knelt, opening it with hesitant fingers. Inside were printed emails, financial spreadsheets, and screenshots of messages, none of which belonged to her. They belonged to Sienna and Bradley. A chill slid down Harper's spine. The emails weren't romantic. They were incriminating. Transfers, unauthorized bonuses, expense reports with forged signatures, a private memo describing a diversion strategy in case the company discovered missing funds. And then she saw it. A handwritten note from Bradley himself. "Harper can never know. If anyone asks, blame accounting. Sienna has the backups." Her stomach twisted violently. He hadn't just been cheating, he had been stealing from his own company and using Sienna to help him cover it up. But the most devastating blow wasn't the criminal evidence. It was a short message from Sienna to Bradley. "Once your wife is out of the way, everything gets easier. The less she knows about Eli's trust fund, the better." Harper froze. Trust fund? Her son had a trust fund? And Bradley had hidden it? She read the next line, breath catching in her throat. "Move the remaining money before year end. She's too naive to question anything." Her vision blurred. He had planned this. Not just betrayal, control, manipulation, removal. Her leaving tonight wasn't just a reaction. It was survival. Her hands shook so violently the papers fluttered to the floor. She gathered them again, breathing through the rising dread. Instinct told her one thing clearly. This wasn't something she could ignore. These documents weren't just secrets. They were weapons Bradley never meant her to find. A sudden knock at the door jolted her. Her heart hammered. Had Bradley come home early? No. 3 soft knocks, followed by a familiar voice. "Harper? It's Christine. Please open the door. It's important." Harper's blood iced. Christine, Bradley's sister. The only Hale who'd ever shown her kindness, and the woman who had sent her the gala video. Harper opened the door just a crack. Christine stepped inside, her face pale, eyes swollen as if she'd been crying for hours. In her hand was another folder, thicker, heavier. "I couldn't keep quiet anymore," Christine whispered. "Bradley is in deep trouble, and he's going to drag you down with him. You need to see this before you decide anything." Harper stared, breath unsteady, because this was the second twist in one night. Christine wasn't here to defend her brother. She was here to save Harper. Harper didn't remember standing up. She didn't remember moving across the living room. All she knew was that her body was suddenly operating on instinct. Pure, fierce, maternal instinct that surged like electricity through her veins. Christine's warning still echoed in her head. Bradley's planning to shift blame. If the company collapses, he'll say you were involved. You and Eli are not safe here. Not safe. The phrase sliced through the numbness that had been clinging to Harper's bones since the gala video. She looked toward the hallway where her son slept peacefully, unaware his father had turned their lives into a ticking time bomb. Harper's voice came out shaky. I have to get him out. Christine nodded. I'll help you pack. You don't have much time. The words were terrifying, yet liberating. For the first time in years, someone wasn't telling Harper to calm down, or to stop overreacting, or to think about Bradley's reputation. Someone was telling her to run. Together, they moved quickly but quietly. Christine stuffed clothes into a duffel bag, while Harper grabbed Eli's small suitcase, the one with dinosaurs on wheels. She packed his favorite pajamas, the scarf he got from school, the worn-out stuffed bear he refused to sleep without. Then she tucked the incriminating documents deep into her own backpack, zipped it, and pressed a hand over the fabric as if protecting gold. Because that's what this evidence was. Freedom. Fear brushed against her ribs as she walked into Eli's room. The soft nightlight glowed on his cheeks. Harper crouched beside him, gently shaking him awake. Sweetheart, she whispered, we're going on a little trip. Eli blinked, confused. Now? But it's nighttime. I know, baby, but Mommy needs us to go somewhere safe. He rubbed his eyes. Is Daddy coming? Her throat tightened. Not tonight. She scooped him into her arms, his small body curling against her shoulder. He was warm, trusting, unaware of the storm swirling around them. Harper kissed the top of his head, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and childhood innocence. When they reached the door, Christine pressed car keys into Harper's hand. Take my SUV. Bradley doesn't know I bought a new one last month. He can't track it. Christine, Harper's voice cracked. I don't know how to thank you. Just get to safety. And when you're ready, use those documents. Don't let him rewrite the story. The hallway was cold when Harper stepped out with Eli in her arms and bags over her shoulders. She glanced back once, the apartment where she had cried, loved, hoped, and lost so much. She would never return here. Not as Bradley's wife, not as the woman he controlled. Snow drifted down from the sky as Harper hurried to the SUV. The city was quiet, improbably peaceful, as if offering her one final kindness before the world woke up again. She buckled Eli into his seat. She started the engine. She gripped the wheel. And for the first time in 5 years of marriage, she felt something new. Power. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, Harper whispered to herself, voice trembling but steady. This time, we're leaving for good. The flight to Seattle landed just after dawn, the sky brushed in muted pinks and grays. Harper stepped off the plane carrying Eli, still half asleep, while dragging 2 overstuffed bags that felt heavier with every breath. Her body ached from anxiety and exhaustion, but the cold Pacific Northwest air hit her cheeks like a cleansing slap. She wasn't safe yet, but at least she was away. Seattle smelled different. Rain, pine, coffee drifting from airport cafes. The place felt softer than New York, quieter, as if it knew how to hold wounded people without asking questions. Harper's boots echoed across the terminal as she followed the signs toward rideshare pickup. She didn't have a plan beyond don't look back, but somehow that had to be enough. Mommy, is this a vacation? Eli murmured from her shoulder. Harper tightened her arms around him. Not exactly, baby, but we're going somewhere better. Outside, rain misted the air. She set Eli in the back seat of a taxi and climbed in after him, whispering the address Christine had sent. An address belonging to someone Harper had never met. A trusted friend. That's all Christine said. Someone who owed her a favor. The taxi wound through wet streets lined with evergreens and small bookstores, past coffee shops glowing warm in the morning drizzle. Harper watched raindrops race down the window, her breath fogging the glass. Each mile that separated her from New York loosened the knot in her chest, but fear still lingered. Fear of Bradley's rage when he discovered she was gone. When the taxi turned onto a quiet residential street overlooking Lake Union, Harper blinked. She expected a cramped apartment or a rundown rental. Instead, a modern craftsman-style home stood at the end of the block. Gray shingles, warm yellow lights, a porch swing gently rocking in the breeze. It looked like the kind of house that belonged to someone who understood peace. Before she could process it, the front door opened. A tall man stepped out. Dressed in joggers and a sweatshirt, dark hair damp as if he had just come in from a morning run. His expression shifted from curiosity to recognition the moment he saw Eli's dinosaur suitcase. "You must be Harper," he said gently. She froze, clutching her son instinctively. "And you are—" "Miles Carter," he introduced, stepping back to give them space. "Christine called me late last night, said you needed somewhere safe. My home is yours for as long as you need." Harper hesitated. Strangers weren't supposed to feel safe. But something in his voice, calm, steady, grounded, felt like an anchor thrown into a storm. Eli tugged her sleeve. "Mommy, can we go inside? I'm cold." Miles knelt to Eli's height. "I've got hot cocoa waiting, with marshmallows if that's okay." Eli nodded shyly. Harper's throat tightened. Kindness. Real. Uncomplicated kindness hit harder than cruelty ever had. Inside, the house was warm, smelling faintly of cedar and fresh coffee. A fireplace crackled softly. Miles carried Harper's heaviest bag without a word, leading them to a guest room overlooking the lake. "This is temporary," Harper whispered to herself as she set Eli on the bed. "Just until we figure things out." But when Miles returned with cocoa for Eli and a steaming mug of tea for her, something in Harper's chest shifted. For the first time in years, she felt safe. She didn't know yet that Miles Carter would become far more than a refuge. He would become the man who helped her rebuild everything she'd lost. Bradley Hale stumbled into the Brooklyn apartment just after 2 a.m., the taste of champagne still clinging to his tongue. His tuxedo jacket hung over his shoulder, and his tie was pulled loose around his neck. He wasn't drunk. Bradley never allowed himself to lose control, but he was floating on the high of the gala, on the attention, the cameras, the whisper of Sienna's perfume lingering on his shirt. He expected a warm apartment. He expected Harper waiting with that wounded smile she always forced. He expected Eli asleep in his tiny dinosaur bed. What he did not expect was silence. Thick, heavy, wrong. "Harper," he called, flipping on the hallway light. "Why is the place dark?" No answer. His annoyance sparked first. How dare she not wait up? But it dissolved when he noticed something odd. The small row of children's shoes by the door was missing. So was Harper's coat. So was the backpack she used for Eli's daycare. A cold prickle crept up Bradley's spine. He strode to Eli's room and threw open the door. Empty. The bed, unmade. The stuffed bear, gone. The nightlight, still glowing softly, casting a lonely halo across the room. "Harper," he repeated, voice growing tight. "This isn't funny." He began opening closets, cabinets, the bathroom, the laundry room. Empty, empty, empty. The apartment felt like a stage after the actors had fled. Then he saw it, on the kitchen counter. A folded note. He snatched it up. "Bradley, Eli, and I are leaving. We're safe." We'll contact you through a lawyer. Do not come after us. Harper. He crushed the note in his fist. Unbelievable, he growled. She's trying to make a scene. He stormed through the apartment searching for any sign of where she had gone. No suitcases, no toiletries, no kids' clothes. She had taken everything that mattered. His chest tightened, not with guilt, but with panic. Because this wasn't just about abandonment. If Harper talked, if she showed anyone those financial documents, if she revealed he'd shifted money through dummy accounts, his entire career could collapse. He grabbed his phone and dialed Harper, straight to voicemail. Then he called her sister, her co-workers, the hospital. Nothing. Finally, he called Christine. She answered on the second ring. "What do you want?" "Don't play dumb," Bradley snapped. "Where's Harper?" Her sigh was cold. "Gone, and you'd better hope she stays quiet." He froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what it means," Christine said sharply. "The money, the forged signatures, the trust fund. She found out, Brad." His mouth went dry. No, she couldn't have. "Listen to me," he hissed. "If you helped her—" "If?" Christine cut in. "I did help her. Someone had to protect that child." Bradley felt the room shrink around him. The walls pressed close, his pulse hammered. "I'll get Eli back. I have rights." "You have a problem," Christine replied. "And she has the evidence." The call ended before he could respond. Bradley stood motionless, the cold reality settling into his bones. His wife was gone. His son was gone. His secrets were slipping through his fingers. And for the first time in his life, Bradley Hale felt something unfamiliar. Fear. Seattle didn't greet Harper with sunshine, but with a gentle gray sky and a soft drizzle that felt strangely comforting. The air smelled of pine and wet pavement, unlike New York's sharp winter wind. Here, the world seemed to move slower, softer, quieter, like life had finally lowered its voice so she could breathe again. Miles Carter kept his promise. On her first morning, he brewed fresh coffee and made pancakes shaped like stars for Eli. Harper watched from the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, unsure how to exist in a place where kindness wasn't a trap. She'd grown so used to managing everything alone that accepting help felt unnatural, almost dangerous. "You don't have to be on guard here," Miles said gently, noticing her tension. "This house has room for people trying to start over. Trust me, I've been there." She didn't ask what he meant, but she sensed a story behind his steady eyes. A loss, a wound, something familiar. After breakfast, he drove them to a small clinic near Lake Union. Clean, modern, filled with natural light. Harper stepped inside and felt the hum of medical machines, the quiet efficiency of nurses, the sense of purpose she'd once loved. The clinic director, a warm woman named Dr. Singh, reviewed Harper's resume and said, "We're understaffed in imaging. If you're available, we could use you as early as next week." Harper blinked back tears. Opportunity, real, honest opportunity, was something she hadn't felt in years. "Yes," she whispered. "I'd love that." That afternoon, while Eli napped, Harper sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. The rain tapped softly against the window as she filled out documents, updated her address to temporary, and emailed her resignation to Mount Sinai. Her hands shook slightly as she typed, but not from fear. This time, it was the weight of choosing her future instead of surviving Bradley's. Miles checked on her quietly. "How are you holding up?" She smiled weakly. "1 hour at a time." He nodded. "That's how rebuilding works." Later, they drove to the local school district office to enroll Eli. The woman at the desk handed Harper a form titled Emergency Contacts. Seeing the blank spaces where Bradley's name should go made Harper's throat tighten. She hesitated, then skipped the line entirely. She wasn't ready to let Bradley anywhere near her son again. When they returned home, the sun briefly pierced the clouds, sending a warm glow across the lake. Eli pressed his face to the window. "Mommy, it looks like the water is sparkling." Harper knelt beside him, stroking his hair. "It does, baby." But inside, something else sparkled. A small, fragile hope. That night, after Eli fell asleep, Harper stepped onto the porch, breathing in the cool air. Her chest no longer felt like it was collapsing under invisible pressure. Miles joined her with 2 mugs of tea. "You did a lot today," he said quietly. "Yeah," Harper whispered, "but it's the first time in a long while I didn't feel like I was drowning." Miles glanced at her with that calm, steady warmth. "You're not. You're resurfacing." Harper looked out at the lake and realized he was right. For the first time since Christmas night, she wasn't running. She was beginning again. The first week in Seattle passed quietly, too quietly. Harper settled into her temporary routine, walking Eli to the nearby park, attending orientation at the clinic, and sharing quiet dinners with Miles. But in the back of her mind, she felt it, an oncoming storm, building pressure, the kind that arrived without mercy. It hit on a Tuesday morning. Harper stepped outside to grab a package of children's books Miles had ordered for Eli. On the porch sat the brown Amazon box, and beside it a crisp white envelope with a gold-embossed return address from a Manhattan law firm she recognized instantly. Hale and Baxter, Bradley's attorneys. Her stomach plummeted. Hands shaking, she tore open the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of legal documents. A petition accusing Harper of absconding with the child. A claim that she was emotionally unstable. A request for emergency custody to force Eli's immediate return to New York. And at the end, a chilling statement. Mr. Hale asserts that Ms. Lane poses a risk of alienation and must be ordered to relinquish the child within 72 hours. "He's trying to take my son," Harper whispered, voice cracking. The paper slipped from her hands onto the porch. Miles, who had been working in his study, stepped outside when he heard her gasp. "Harper? What happened?" She handed him the envelope, unable to speak. He scanned the documents, his jaw tightening with each page. "He's cornering you," Miles said quietly. "He wants to scare you into coming back." "It's working," Harper choked out. "Miles, he has money, lawyers, influence. What if the court believes him? What if he takes Eli away from me?" Tears spilled down her cheeks as panic clawed through her chest. It felt like New York was reaching across the entire country to drag her back into hell. Miles stepped close, not touching, not crowding, just steady. "You left because you were protecting your son, and you have proof. You're not alone in this." "But proof isn't enough," Harper whispered. "Bradley, he knows how to twist things. He knows how to make people believe him." "That's why you need the right attorney," Miles replied. "And I know someone. A good one." He stepped inside, made a call, and within minutes returned. "She can meet you today. Her name is Dana Whitfield. She's one of the best in the state." Harper nodded numbly, wiping her eyes. 2 hours later, Harper sat in a small conference room with Dana, a composed woman in her 40s who had the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen too many ugly divorces. "Bradley's filing is aggressive," Dana said, flipping through the documents. "Typical for someone trying to establish dominance quickly. But he made mistakes." "Mistakes?" Harper whispered. Dana pulled out one of the papers. "He filed under the assumption you left without cause, but you have evidence of financial misconduct, emotional neglect, and public humiliation. And Christine Hale is willing to testify. That changes everything." Harper felt a small breath of relief, but it was fragile. Dana leaned forward. "You need to understand something. This won't be easy. He will lie. He will manipulate. He will try to break you. But if you stand firm, You can win. You can protect your son. Harper swallowed hard. I'll do whatever it takes. Miles, sitting quietly in the corner, met her eyes with a steady warmth. You're stronger than he ever realized. For the first time since receiving the envelope, Harper believed it might be true. The custody battle had begun, but this time, she wasn't fighting alone. Dana Whitfield's office became Harper's second home over the next several days. Papers spread across the glossy wooden table like a battlefield map. Emails, screenshots, bank statements, timestamps, witness lists. Each document felt like a small shard of truth, sharp enough to cut through Bradley's lies if used correctly. Custody battles, Dana said as she shuffled through a stack of files, aren't about who yells louder. They're about who proves they can protect the child. And Bradley has handed us ammunition. Harper sat stiffly, hands clasped, to stop the trembling. What about the way he twists things? He'll say I left irrationally, that I'm unstable. Dana lifted a brow. Then we show the court the real reason you left. She picked up the video, the Plaza Hotel clip, assigned a timestamp and printed commentary noting public intoxication, inappropriate conduct, and moral negligence. Harper winced watching it again, but Dana remained unfazed. This isn't about humiliation, Dana said. It's about demonstrating a pattern, and this, she tapped the stack of financial documents, is more than enough to establish one. Harper exhaled slowly. I can't believe he hid money from Eli, or dragged Sienna into his schemes. Dana smirked. Men like Bradley think they're smarter than everyone else, until they aren't. The next piece of preparation came from Christine. When Christine arrived at Dana's office after flying across the country, Harper almost broke down in tears. Christine hugged her tightly, sincere, protective. I'm so sorry, Christine whispered. I should have helped sooner. You're helping now, Harper replied. That's what matters. Christine handed Dana another folder, thicker than the first. These are Bradley's internal memos, password logs, email screenshots. I kept copies because I always knew he'd self-destruct one day. Harper stared. Christine, this could ruin him. That's the point, Christine said quietly. He doesn't get to ruin you and walk away clean. As Dana examined the new documents, her expression sharpened. This is more than enough to prove misconduct, and if he tries to argue Harper's unfit, we'll file for a full forensic audit. Harper didn't know whether to be relieved or terrified. Later that night, back at Miles's house, Harper spread the documents across the kitchen table again. The rain pattered against the windows as she tried to organize them chronologically. You look like you're about to pass out, Miles said gently, setting a steaming cup of tea beside her. I just want to protect my son, Harper whispered. You're doing that, Miles said. Piece by piece. She looked at him, really looked at him. The warmth in his eyes, the steadiness in his presence. It felt foreign to be supported, yet comforting in a way she didn't dare name. Before she could speak, her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You think you can disappear? You think you can take my son? You'll regret this. Bradley. Her blood ran cold. Miles saw her reaction instantly. Who is it? She showed him the screen. His jaw tightened. Send that to Dana, right now. It's just a threat, Harper whispered. No, Miles said firmly. It's evidence. Harper forwarded the message. Dana responded within seconds. Good, he just handed us another weapon. Harper stared at the documents, the threats, the swirling mess of her life. She was terrified, but she was no longer powerless. The war had officially begun. The courthouse in downtown Seattle rose like a cold gray monument against the cloudy morning sky. Harper felt its weight long before she stepped inside. She clutched Eli's hand as they walked up the long stone steps, her breath visible in the winter air. Every step reminded her she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her son's entire future. Miles walked beside her for support, his presence quiet but grounding. Dana met them at the entrance, dressed in a navy suit sharp enough to slice through lies. "Remember," she said calmly, "you don't speak unless spoken to. Keep your head high. Bradley will try to rattle you." Harper swallowed. "I'm ready." But she didn't feel ready. Not when they entered the courtroom and saw Bradley already seated with his high-priced Manhattan legal team. He didn't look like a man who had destroyed his family. He looked polished, confident, rehearsed. His tie was perfectly knotted. His expression carried just enough concern to seem sympathetic. And when he saw Harper, he smirked. Not wide, not obvious, just enough for her to feel the sting. The judge, a stern woman named Nora Whitfield, entered. The room fell silent. "Case of Hale versus Lane," the clerk announced. "Emergency custody hearing." Bradley's attorney rose first, projecting his voice with practiced ease. "Your Honor, my client is deeply distressed. His wife fled across the country without warning, depriving their son of stability, routine, and the presence of a loving father." Harper's jaw clenched. He continued, "Ms. Lane has a documented history of emotional volatility, and we fear for the child's welfare." Harper stiffened. Dana placed a calming hand over hers. Then came the twist. The attorney held up a stack of printed photos, images of Harper in moments she never knew were captured. Her crying outside Mount Sinai after a brutal shift. Her carrying a screaming toddler during a meltdown. Her sitting alone on a park bench, exhausted. The attorney spun them like weapons. "This behavior demonstrates instability." Harper's stomach dropped. Were these from Bradley? Or Sienna? Judge Whitfield studied the photos, then turned to Harper. "Ms. Lane, do you have representation prepared to respond?" Dana stood, her voice cool as steel. "Yes, Your Honor, and we request these photos be dismissed as they show a working mother caring for her child, not instability." She handed the judge a bound packet. "In contrast, here is documented evidence of Mr. Hale's public misconduct, his ongoing extramarital affair, and financial irregularities." Bradley's composure cracked. "That's irrelevant." "Sit down, Mr. Hale," the judge ordered. Dana continued. "Additionally, we have proof that Mr. Hale threatened Ms. Lane via text message, direct intimidation." The judge reviewed the documents. Bradley's face paled. But then came the emotional blow. Unexpected. Brutal. The judge said, "While the evidence against Mr. Hale is concerning, interstate relocation without notification is also serious. Therefore, until further evaluation, temporary joint custody is ordered, with supervised visitation for the father in Seattle." Harper's breath hitched. Joint custody, even after everything? Bradley exhaled in triumph. Dana leaned close. "This is not a loss. It's the court being cautious. We'll win the long battle." But Harper felt crushed. She wanted protection, safety, a clean break. Instead, she had legal chains tying her to the man she was running from. As the hearing adjourned, Bradley walked past her slowly, whispering under his breath, "You can't run forever." Her body chilled. But when she lifted her eyes, she found Miles watching her with quiet determination, reminding her this wasn't the end, just the beginning of the real fight. The days after the first hearing felt heavy, as if the courtroom's cold marble still clung to Harper's skin. She carried the weight of joint custody like an invisible shackle, terrified Bradley would twist his newfound access into another weapon. But Seattle, quiet, rainy, steady Seattle, had a way of softening the panic that lived inside her. Every morning began the same. Eli at the kitchen counter eating cereal shaped like little stars. Miles brewing coffee while soft jazz played from a speaker tucked near the window. Harper breathing slowly, letting her shoulders settle a little more each day. "You don't have to rebuild everything at once," Miles told her one morning as he handed her a mug. Just choose one corner of your life to fix at a time. She smiled weakly. Which corner do I start with? Whichever one hurts the least, he replied. It was the first time she laughed in weeks. Work helped. The imaging clinic gave her purpose again, patients who trusted her, colleagues who brought her lunch, children who giggled when she made their wrist x-rays look like superhero badges. Slowly, Harper began to remember who she was before Bradley had chipped away at her confidence. But healing wasn't linear. Some nights, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, haunted by Bradley's voice in the courtroom. Other nights, she replayed his threats, wondering if she'd ever truly escape him. And on the hardest nights, she crept into Eli's room, watching him sleep, terrified the court might someday decide she wasn't enough. One rainy evening, Harper stood on the porch, staring at the lake when Miles joined her, hands tucked into his jacket pockets. "You're overthinking again," he said softly. "Seems to be all I do now." Miles leaned against the railing beside her. "You survived New York. You survived that marriage. You survived walking away with nothing but your son and a few bags. That's not fear talking, Harper. That's strength." She blinked quickly, swallowing emotion. "I don't feel strong." "That's because you haven't looked in a mirror lately," he said, his voice low. "You're not the woman who arrived here in tears. You're standing straighter, holding your ground, learning to breathe again." She exhaled shakily. "I'm still scared." "Good," Miles said. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the hard thing anyway." His words wrapped around her like a warm blanket. The subtle shift between them grew thicker with each passing day. Not romantic, not yet, but protective, familiar, safe. The kind of connection built slowly, like trust earned one soft gesture at a time. One night, after Eli fell asleep on the couch during movie night, Harper draped a blanket over him. When she turned, she found Miles watching her, not with pity, not with curiosity, but with something deeper. "You're a good mother," he said quietly. Harper's breath caught. "I'm trying. That's all I can do." "That's more than some people ever give," he replied, and she knew exactly who he meant. That night, as Harper stood by Eli's door, a realization washed over her. For the first time since her marriage began crumbling, she wasn't surviving alone. She wasn't climbing from the wreckage by herself. She had a hand steadying her, a home sheltering her, a future waiting, quiet but promising. Seattle wasn't just a hiding place anymore. It was the beginning of her rise. Bradley Hale strutted into the Hale and Weston office on Monday morning as if nothing in his world had cracked. His suit was immaculate, his hair styled perfectly, his expression the carefully curated mask of a man who believed he still owned every room he walked into. He expected whispers, admiration, annoyance, maybe even envy. What he didn't expect was silence, a suffocating, unnatural silence. People avoided eye contact. Conversations halted when he passed. Assistants scattered like startled birds. Bradley frowned, straightening the cuffs of his shirt as he made his way to the 46th floor. Something was off, but he chalked it up to jealousy. After all, the gala clip had gone viral. He and Sienna, locked in a glamorous kiss beneath the plaza's golden lights. It looked like a scene from a movie. But his inflated pride shattered the moment he entered the executive conference room. The partners were waiting, 6 of them, solemn, arms crossed, faces hard. At the end of the table sat Mr. Weston himself, co-founder, mentor, the man Bradley had idolized since day one. The man whose approval Bradley had chased more desperately than his own wife's love. "Bradley," Weston said coldly. "Sit." Bradley smirked, feigning calm. "I assume this is about the gala. Social media exaggerates everything." "It's not about the gala," Weston cut in sharply. "It's about the audit." The room went still. Audit. Bradley's pulse spiked. "What audit?" he asked slowly. Weston slid a folder across the table. Bradley recognized it instantly, the same Hale and Weston folder he always kept hidden at home, the same one Harper must have found. Inside were the doctored expense reports, the forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers to shell accounts, and every piece of evidence pointed squarely at him. Bradley's mouth went dry. "This is taken out of context." "No," Weston replied, eyes cold as glass. "This is theft." Sienna stepped into the room then, unexpected, uninvited, yet perfectly timed. She wore a sleek black dress, her expression unreadable. Bradley's stomach dropped. "Sienna, what are you doing?" She didn't answer him. Instead, she placed a USB drive on the table. "This contains every message Bradley sent instructing me to falsify financial records," she said, "and recordings of him admitting it." Bradley stared at her in disbelief. "You set me up." Sienna shrugged lightly. "Self-preservation, Brad. You taught me well." "You can't do this," he hissed. "You did it to yourself," she replied calmly. Weston stood. "Until further notice, you're suspended. Turn in your key card. Security will escort you out." Bradley's world collapsed around him. "But you don't understand. My wife, she stole documents. She's unstable." Weston slammed his hand on the table. "Your wife protected your child. You disgraced this firm." Security stepped forward. Bradley's throat tightened with a mix of rage and humiliation. As he was escorted out, employees lifted their heads, not with respect, but with curiosity and judgment. Every phone he saw felt like another camera capturing his downfall. And in the lobby, as the cold winter air hit his face, a single horrifying thought pierced through the chaos. Harper had the upper hand now. His wife, the woman he underestimated, had become the biggest threat to everything he built, and she didn't even know how much power she held yet. The news arrived on a gray Wednesday morning, when Seattle drizzle tapped softly against the clinic windows. Harper had just finished guiding an elderly patient through a chest X-ray when her phone buzzed with a message from Dana. "Emergency meeting. Come as soon as possible." Her stomach fluttered. Emergency could mean disaster or breakthrough. Miles insisted on driving her. He didn't ask questions, just placed a steady hand on the small of her back as they rushed out the door. "Whatever it is," he said, "you won't face it alone." When they entered Dana's office, Christine was already there, pacing like she'd been holding in news too volatile to carry alone. The moment she saw Harper, she blurted, "He's losing everything." Harper blinked. "What?" Dana gestured for them to sit. "Hale and Weston launched a full internal investigation. Sienna turned over complete cooperation. Bradley is suspended. And, this is the important part, his company notified the court." "What does that mean for custody?" Harper whispered, barely able to breathe. "It means," Dana said, sliding a document toward her, "your case just shifted dramatically in your favor." Harper scanned the paper, her eyes widening. The firm had formally acknowledged financial misconduct. They confirmed Bradley had used company resources for personal gain. They admitted his behavior violated corporate ethics and legal guidelines. And at the bottom, a statement that struck like lightning. "Mr. Bradley Hale's credibility cannot be guaranteed in legal or financial matters until the investigation concludes." Harper's throat tightened. For months, years, Bradley had held all the power. Now, his empire was collapsing. Christine leaned in. "This isn't just bad for him, it's catastrophic. The court will see instability, reckless judgment, financial deception, all while you have proof you left for safety." Dana nodded. "I'm filing a modification request today. With this evidence, we'll argue for primary custody without joint conditions." Harper covered her mouth as tears blurred her vision. "So, Eli stays with me?" "If the judge agrees," Dana said. "Yes, and I'm confident she will." It felt like sunlight piercing through a storm cloud, warm, sudden, disorienting. Harper didn't realize she was shaking until Miles gently placed his hand over hers. "This is your first win," he murmured, "and you earned it." But the turning point wasn't only legal, it was emotional. For so long, Harper had believed Bradley's version of her: weak, overreactive, incapable of surviving without him. Every insult he fed her became a chain. Every betrayal chipped away another layer of self-worth. Yet here she was, standing, fighting, winning. Not because someone rescued her, but because she found the courage to walk away. Christine exhaled shakily. "Harper, I know it doesn't fix everything, but my brother's downfall? He built that himself. You didn't do this to him." For the first time, Harper believed it. As she left the office, Miles walked beside her, hands in his jacket pockets, watching her carefully. "How do you feel?" he asked quietly. Harper inhaled the cool Seattle air, letting it fill her lungs, letting the moment settle into her bones. "Like I can finally breathe," she said. "Like maybe I'm not the broken one." Miles smiled softly. "You were never the broken one." And as they walked toward the car, Harper felt something powerful, an unfamiliar but welcome sensation. A rise, a shift, a beginning. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was winning. Bradley Hale had always believed he was untouchable. Even as Hale and Weston suspended him, even as internal auditors dissected every corner of his financial dealings, he told himself it would all blow over. His charm had saved him before. His connections had shielded him before. And if all else failed, he still had Sienna, a woman who, in his mind, worshipped him. But by the end of that week, reality struck with the force of a wrecking ball. It started with a leak. A financial reporter from a well-known Manhattan business magazine published an exposé titled "VP Bradley Hale Under Investigation for Corporate Fraud." The article detailed unauthorized expense accounts, shell companies, and forged approvals, information only someone close to Bradley could have leaked. He stormed into Sienna's apartment demanding answers. She didn't even open the door fully, just enough for him to see she was packing a suitcase. "Sienna, what the hell do you think you're doing?" She didn't bother to look guilty. "Leaving. My attorney says cooperating with the firm is my safest option." "You turned on me," he seethed. "After everything we—" "Everything we?" She laughed coldly. "Bradley, I don't go down with sinking ships. I told you not to involve me in your financial games, but you thought you could manipulate everyone, including me." "You can't walk away from me," he snapped. She gave him one long, pitying look. "I already did." The door shut in his face. That same day, reporters gathered outside his apartment building. Cameras flashed the moment he stepped onto the sidewalk, microphones shoved toward him. "Mr. Hale, is it true you falsified expense records? Are you facing criminal charges? What about the video with your mistress at the plaza? Has your wife filed for full custody?" Bradley attempted a tight smile. No comment. But the real blow came when a financial news station aired a special segment on corporate ethics. Footage of Bradley's gala kiss with Sienna played on loop beside a headline that read, "Executives behaving badly when power turns toxic." Social media devoured it. Within hours, the Bradley Hale scandal trended nationwide. His reputation, once clean and glossy, now dripped with public ridicule. But humiliation wasn't the worst part. The worst part came when his phone buzzed with an email from his firm's legal department. Effective immediately, Bradley Hale was terminated. His severance revoked. His stock options frozen. His company credit card disabled. He stared at the email, breath hitching. No, they can't do this. But they had. Next came his bank. Accounts flagged, transactions frozen pending investigation. His Manhattan Condominium Association sent notice he was in violation of residency rules due to public conduct damaging to property reputation. His life was collapsing in real time. For the first time, Bradley felt something he'd never experienced: powerlessness. He punched the steering wheel of his luxury sedan until his knuckles split. "This is all her fault," he snarled. "Harper did this to me." He imagined her in Seattle, smiling, safe, building a life without him. Rage flooded him, hot, bitter, consuming. He whispered into the empty car, "If she thinks she's won, she has no idea what's coming." But what Bradley didn't know was this: Harper's rise had only just begun, and his downfall was far from over. The evening of the community fundraiser at the Lake Union Event Hall felt like a turning point before it even began. Soft amber lights reflected off the water, guests arrived in elegant coats, and the hall buzzed with anticipation. The event supported the clinic Harper worked for, and Miles, quietly but significantly, had become its largest donor. Harper had been asked to speak about the importance of accessible care for single-parent families. She tried to stay calm, smoothing the simple navy dress she wore. It wasn't glamorous, but it made her feel steady, grounded. "Breathe," Miles whispered, as he adjusted the microphone on her dress. "You're going to do beautifully." She smiled nervously. "I'm not used to being in front of people." "You're stronger than you think," he said, words that felt like a steadying hand on her heart. The event began smoothly, guests sipping wine and admiring the scenic view. Harper stepped onto the stage when her name was called. Her voice wavered at first, but grew stronger as she spoke about mothers who worked long hours, fathers who juggled impossible responsibilities, and children who deserved safety above all else. But just as the audience settled into heartfelt silence, the doors slammed open. Gasps rippled through the room. Bradley Hale stormed inside, disheveled, red-eyed, desperate. Security moved toward him, but he shoved past, locking eyes on Harper like a man possessed. "You think you've won?" he shouted, voice cracking. "You think you can humiliate me and walk away?" Harper froze on stage, heart pounding. Miles immediately stepped forward, positioning himself between them. "Bradley, you need to leave." Bradley pointed at Harper, ignoring Miles entirely. "She ruined my life. She stole my son. She fed lies to my company." "Your company exposed you," Harper said softly, Mike amplifying her steady voice. Bradley's eyes darted wildly. "You turned everyone against me." "No," Harper replied. "Your actions did that." Unable to control his rage, Bradley lunged toward her. Camera phones whipped out instantly. Gasps echoed. Security rushed. But Miles reached him first, grabbing Bradley's arm and forcing him back with a calm strength Bradley couldn't match. "You will not touch her," Miles growled. Bradley struggled, shouting incoherently about custody, betrayal, ruined futures. His voice cracked under the weight of panic and ego. Then the final blow landed. Not from Harper, nor Miles, nor the audience, but from Christine. She stepped forward, holding up her phone. The court requested evidence of Bradley's behavior outside legal proceedings. "Congratulations, Brad. They have it now." Her screen showed a live video, broadcasting Bradley's meltdown directly to the judge's secure intake portal. The room fell silent. Bradley froze, finally understanding. "You," he whispered, staring at Christine like she was a stranger. "You betrayed me too." "No," she said, voice steady. "I protected the people you hurt." Security escorted Bradley out as he shouted Harper's name, shouts that grew smaller and weaker as the doors swallowed him. When the room finally exhaled, Harper swayed slightly. Miles steadied her, his hand warm at her back. "You okay?" he asked gently. Harper nodded, tears brimming, but not tears of fear. Tears of release. For the first time, Bradley Hale's power had ended in the exact place he'd tried to destroy hers, publicly, completely, irreversibly, and the audience witnessing everything rose in quiet sympathy, not for Bradley, but for Harper Lane, the woman who had endured and finally stood triumphant. The fallout from Bradley's public meltdown spread faster than winter wind across Lake Union. By the next morning, the video Christine submitted, combined with dozens of guest recordings, circulated through the legal system and the media. Judge Nora Whitfield reviewed everything before the final custody hearing, and her decision came swiftly, clearly, without hesitation. Given Mr. Hale's unstable behavior, ongoing investigation, and demonstrated risk to the child's emotional well-being, full physical and legal custody is hereby granted to Ms. Harper Lane. Visitation for Mr. Hale is suspended until further psychological evaluation. Harper didn't cry at first. She simply sat there, still, stunned, letting the words settle like warm sunlight on frozen ground. Then Eli climbed into her lap, wrapping his small arms around her neck. "Does this mean I stay with you forever, Mommy?" Her voice cracked. "Yes, baby, forever." Bradley, on the opposite side of the courtroom, looked hollow, not angry, not explosive, empty. His downfall was complete. Career gone, reputation destroyed, family lost, mistress vanished, allies silenced. For years he believed he was untouchable, but today, consequences finally reached him. He tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. "Mr. Hale, this court strongly advises you to seek help before attempting further legal action." Help, a word he had mocked all his life. As security escorted him out, Harper felt no malice, no triumph, only closure. The chapter that had suffocated her was over. Seattle welcomed her future with open skies. Over the following weeks, Harper settled fully into her new life. The clinic offered her a permanent position. Eli thrived at his new school, making friends, laughing more than he ever had in New York. And Miles, gentle, steady Miles, remained by her side through every small victory, every hesitant step, every deep breath of freedom. One quiet evening, Harper stood on the porch watching golden reflections ripple across Lake Union. Miles joined her, handing her a mug of chamomile tea. "You look lighter," he said softly. "I feel lighter," she admitted. "For the first time, I'm not waiting for something bad to happen." He smiled, eyes warm. "You built this peace, Harper. You chose it." She turned, searching his face. "I wouldn't have survived all this without you." Miles shook his head. "No, I was just the steady ground. You were the one climbing out." Silence settled between them, comfortable, breathless. Then he spoke again, voice quiet but certain. "I care about you, both of you, but I'll only move forward if it's what you want. No pressure, no expectations, just honesty." Harper felt something inside her unlock, a door she'd kept barred since the day she left New York. A soft rush of emotion swelled in her chest. "I want a life that's gentle," she whispered, "a life that feels like this. Safe, real, hopeful." Miles stepped closer. "We can build that. Together if you're ready." Harper nodded, tears shining in her eyes, not from pain but release. He leaned forward and kissed her. Slow, tender. Nothing like the frantic, hollow affection she'd once mistaken for love. This kiss felt earned, quiet, healing. Eli's voice suddenly called from inside, "Mommy! Miles! Can we make hot cocoa?" Harper laughed, a real laugh, full and free. "Coming, sweetheart!" As she and Miles walked inside, the warm glow of the house wrapped around them. Harper Lane had lost everything once, but she rebuilt from ashes, stronger, wiser, loved. This wasn't just a happy ending, it was a deserved one. So, that's how our story closes tonight. And if you're still here, my friend, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a quiet, honest way. Maybe you saw a little of yourself in Harper's struggle. Maybe you felt the weight of walking away or the courage it takes to start over. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The power to choose is yours." No one can take that from you, and maybe that's the biggest lesson here. We're allowed to leave what hurts us. We're allowed to rebuild. We're allowed to protect our peace. Life doesn't always give us clean breaks or perfect timing, but healing happens the moment we choose ourselves again. Slowly, gently, the way a sunrise pushes back the night. If this story made you feel understood even just a little, then don't walk this journey alone. Like, share, and subscribe, so more people who need strength, hope, or a reminder of their own worth can find it too. And whatever you're facing right now, remember, you're stronger than the things that tried to break you. I'm proud you stayed until the end.